Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
On December the 5th, we come into Daniel chapter 4 through chapter 5. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has done for me. How great are His signs, how mighty His wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and His dominion endures from generation to generation. Now, what a declaration from this pagan conquering king named Nebuchadnezzar. Everything that he said there is true. It's amazing how God puts His word in the mouth of this pagan king. And of course, we have this wonderful occasion in chapter 4 and verse 4 to see Nebuchadnezzar. He is going to write this letter. We have a letter of Nebuchadnezzar, and he's going to write in the first person, and he's going to give a testimony about the hero of the book, Daniel. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house, prospering in my palace. I saw a dream that made me afraid. Skip down to verse 8. At last Daniel came in before me, he who was named Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And I told him the dream, saying, now look at verse 10. The visions of my head as I lay in my bed were these. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth. Its height was great. The tree grew and became strong, and its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth. Its leaves, pay attention here, its leaves were beautiful, and its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. So again, we have this vision of a tree. This is the same vision that Ezekiel had, and it's going to be the same vision that John is going to have in the very end. Except here, in this dream, as we see in verse 22, the tree in the dream is Nebuchadnezzar himself. Now remember what we've seen so far of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, remember in chapter 2, he was the golden-headed, he was the head of the statue, he was the golden head of the statue. The point is that he represents the dominion that humanity was intended to have. Verse 22 says, the tree is you, O king, who have grown and become strong. Your greatness has grown and reaches to heaven, your dominion to the end of the earth. There again, when we hear that dominion language, we're supposed to think of the mandate that God gave humanity. God gave this to Adam and Eve, and of course, they forfeited their dominion. And here we see the extent of that forfeited dominion in Nebuchadnezzar. Look at verse 24. This is the interpretation, O king. It's a decree of the Most High which has come upon my lord the king. You shall be driven out among men. Your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like an ox. You shall be wet with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time shall pass over you till you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom He will. And then, of course, let's skip down here, verse 31. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it's spoken, the kingdom has departed from you, and you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like an ox. 7 periods of time shall pass over you until you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whom He will. Immediately the word was fulfilled against Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from among men and ate grass like an ox. His body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair grew as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. Now, verse 34, what an impressive passage. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven. My reason returned to me. I blessed the Most High and praised and honored Him who lives forever. Listen to this language. For His dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing. He does according to His will among the host of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. None can stay His hand or say to Him, what have you done? Now that's a wonderful lesson for us that God taught. It's a wonderful lesson for us that God taught to this pagan king named Nebuchadnezzar. Now chapter 5 then, we have a new king, King Belteshazzar, and here he is making a great feast for 1,000 of his lords. He drank wine in front of the 1,000. Verse 3, then they brought in the golden vessels and had taken out of the temple The house of God in Jerusalem, and the king of his lord's wives, his concubines, drank from the vessels. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. That's a complete list there, showing us the extent of their idolatry. They're doing exactly what they shouldn't be doing. In verse 5, God responds, "Immediately the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, opposite the lampstand. The king saw the hand as it wrote. The king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, and his knees knocked together. The king called loudly to bring in the enchanters and the Chaldeans. No one could read it. And could it be, this is just a guess, but could it be that what the hand wrote on the wall was Hebrew? And I believe that it could have been, because Daniel, of course, he tells the king what's written on the wall. The king comes and says, "Hey, if you tell me what's written, then I'll give you a reward." And Daniel says, "Nah, let the gifts be for yourself. Give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I'll read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation." Now, what's the interpretation? Verse 24. Then from his presence the hand was sent. This writing was inscribed, and this is the writing that is inscribed, Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Paris, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persian. Then Belshazzar gave Daniel all these jewels, and that very night Belshazzar the Chaldean king was killed. Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Now, this story is going to get great as we consider chapter 6 tomorrow of Daniel, but we'll have to wait until then. I'll give you a hint. Tomorrow's episode, Daniel will be in the lion's den. 1 John 5 then, boy, that's a lot of rhymes, isn't it? 1 John 5, I write these things to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life. What a beautiful thought, dear believer, dear friend. You can know that you have eternal life. This is the confidence that we have toward Him. We have asked anything according to His will, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request that we have asked of Him. Verse 20 then, we know that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding, so that we may know Him who is true. We are in Him who is true, in His Son, Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life. Then look at verse 21. Little children, keep yourself from idols. Now that's an interesting way to end 1 John. An interesting word, but that final word tells us what the whole letter has been about. It's been about the right adoration of Jesus Christ, who is, of course, the object of our affection. And here is contrasted again with old Belshazzar, who had his party, and the handwriting on the wall said the kingdom is over. Not simply the party's over, but the kingdom is over. We don't need to praise the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, stone. No, little children, we're to keep ourselves from idols, because we have the perfect. His name is Jesus Christ. Let's end on that note today. Yes, there's Psalm 125, and there's also Proverbs 29, 5 through 8. Well, let's end on this note. Little children, keep yourself from idols.